Good morning, or good afternoon, or perhaps good evening to all of you who've chosen to join us today on the Parsec webinar about avoiding the high cost of poor quality. We're going to talk today about how an effective quality management system can drive bottom line results. As we get started here, we're going to make sure we've got everybody on the line. So I'm giving it a few minutes for everybody to sign in. Looks like we have most of the attendees that registered. I'll make a quick note about the webinar and how we're going to proceed. If you do have questions as we go along, please do take a moment and put them into the questions panel. And that way, at the end, when we have a few minutes to wrap up, we can address those questions. Of course, we may not get a chance to get to all of your questions, and those questions that don't go answered here on the webinar, we will get to those. We will provide answers in an email follow-up that we'll send out after the webinar. And of course, if you have more in-depth issues you'd like to cover, we do invite you to reach out to us directly, and we'd be happy to engage with you. All right, so let's get ourselves rolling here. Today's topic, of course, is quality. That's a very broad and deep topic, and it really goes right to the heart of what it is we do. Quality is something that is the result of a process, whether it's good quality or bad quality. It doesn't happen in one step. It happens as the result of a series of steps in a process, and we're going to talk today about that and the central role that it plays, because after all, as we can see from Mr. Franklin here, quality matters to the folks that we sell to, and it goes right to the heart of our brand. I'm joined today in this presentation by two of our experts here at Parsec. Corey Vodvarka, our Director of Manufacturing Solutions, is a lean manufacturing expert, a Six Sigma black belt, a former plant manager, and he has joined Parsec after implementing Traxxas at two different companies. We're very glad to have him here. And Bill Locos, our CTO, will be taking a dive into our software to show how the software that we've crafted, Traxxas, helps to fulfill on the requirements of a quality management program. Before we jump in, I'd like to share with you a little bit about who we are. After all, how is it we know so much about quality? Well, we've been doing this a long time, almost 30 years, and we've been working with some of the largest manufacturers in the world on manufacturing management issues like quality and performance and others. We're in thousands of sites in over 100 countries. I think the current tally is 108 countries. And in that time, and with all of that experience, we've learned quite a bit about what it takes not only to produce a quality management program and the processes that are involved, but to produce software that can support such a program. Here's one example we're happy to share. There are more examples like this on our website. You can go to parsec-corp.com and visit our resource center to find more examples like this. Helsa is a canned seafood maker out of Spain, and we were able to help them achieve some significant results using Traxxas software together with their quality improvement teams, and you can see some of those numbers right here. 10% reduction in COGS, pretty significant, as anybody who's in this business can tell you. Moving at 1 point can be significant. 10 was quite impressive. A 15% increase in productivity and 200,000 additional cans per day. These are the kind of results we like to see, and we're happy to report that Helsa is not unique. We see these kinds of results with other customers as well. With that commercial message out of the way, let's jump in, and I'm going to hand it over to Corey Vodvarka to talk a little bit more about quality.
Hello. The cost of poor quality is oftentimes a kind of a difficult thing to get your arms around and measure accurately, because there's a lot of things out there that aren't necessarily easy to see. But as a product makes its way through the value stream, the potential cost of poor quality goes up significantly. It's said that not correcting a problem until the next phase of a process can cost 10 times more than fixing the problem at the previous process. given the 1 to 10 to 100 rule. Inspecting poor quality out on the back end of a process is expensive and not very reliable. Not only are you eating the cost to produce the product, but you're risking product escaping and getting in the hands of a customer, where the cost impact may grow in ways not easily measured. The cost of poor quality can include internal failure costs like scrap, rework, disposal cost, overtime for labor to fix or replace bad product, and even expedited freight and penalties for late delivery. It can also include external failure costs like customer service time and resources, recall costs, lost trust of customers. As I mentioned, you can't inspect bad quality out. It must be built into the process by understanding and controlling the potential sources of variation. Things like suppliers, lot-to-lot variation, operator-to-operator, shift-to-shift, machinery and maintenance, Mother Nature, measurement equipment and calibration, just to name a few. Many times quality problems happen and organizations are challenged to understand the root causes and fix the problems. While I was completing my Six Sigma Black Belt certification, I was assigned to solve many operational and quality issues that had existed for many years and had damaged the recognition of the brands my employers had created. I found that the reason many project teams seemed to fail was a result of incomplete or inadequate process data to analyze the problem. Many of the most difficult problems I solved in my career included understanding what aspects were most important and have good measurements and records in place to understand how those aspects interact to create the perfect storm, resulting in bad quality. Data records need to be comprehensive because the problem can originate in many areas of the value stream. Quality touches all areas of the value stream and needs to be the responsibility of all individuals of an organization. Processes and procedures throughout the value stream need to be standardized to reduce and eliminate variability in the products produced. This can include controls like standard operating procedures and checklists, statistical sampling and SPC, also preventive maintenance, to name a few. Software can play an important role in collecting critical data and implementing controls. It can pull data from various data sources like ERP systems, MRP, plant floor automation, QA and QC systems, as well as preventive maintenance systems to give a comprehensive view of the factory. It can provide real-time data analysis and alerts to exceptions so the process can be adjusted quickly. Traxxas delivers solutions to both track and control the sources of variability throughout the value stream. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Locos to dive a little bit deeper into how Traxxas can solve some of your quality problems.
Thank you very much, Corey. All right, hello everyone. So we're going to be taking a look at the software. We're going to be covering a lot of the subjects that we just went over in the previous slides. What I have up here in front of you before we get to the actual software is sort of a review of some of the topics we touched on. A quality management software solution could potentially cover a lot of different areas, a lot of different activities in the plant, and a lot of different processes. This is a sort of an orbit, describing some of the key ones that you're going to see pretty much in any organization, checking quality, having a quality management system. In your scenarios that you run into or you have at your factories, you may go very deep in some of these areas. You may go shallow in some others. You may do all of these. You may do a subset of these. What we're going to be talking about in the Traxxas demonstrations, we're going to be covering many of these things. So I wanted to put this up as I'm talking for you to read over. We're going to be touching on many of these items as we go through and highlighting what Traxxas can do from a software standpoint to help that process Corey was talking about. All right, and one last slide before we get to the software. Some of you may be new to the concept of Traxxas, to the software, maybe haven't even seen a demonstration yet. So wanted to give you an overview of what we're actually talking about here. In the center of this diagram is a graphic representing the Traxxas software. It's a platform, it's a solution that's installed in the plant environment, and above it you see the main areas that Traxxas typically covers: production, maintenance, quality, and inventory. Now we're going to be talking about quality specifically today, but it's worth mentioning that Traxxas is got a wide variety of other uses, and these things all fit together very nicely. As a matter of fact, you're going to see how quality integrates in with some of these other things as I take you through the demonstration today. So that's Traxxas in the center. Over to the left, we've got various connectors and technology to talk to other business systems. This is very important in any plant floor implementation of this type of software. We're typically talking to systems above us like ERP, getting production orders from ERP, scheduling information. We're talking to other systems in parallel to Traxxas, like perhaps quality systems like LIMS, maybe other existing point quality solutions, bringing that data in some cases to Traxxas and putting that all together. So we've got technology to connect to those business systems. Down below, we've got the plant floor. Traxxas is a real-time operations management system. Connecting in real time and getting real information from the processes is very important. And so reading production counts, reading the status of when production is occurring and when it isn't, to help schedule various quality activities is very important. So Traxxas connects to that plant floor process below, batching, continuous, and discrete type activities. And then over on the right are the users of the system. So Traxxas is a web-based user interface. So all the users are going to interact through a browser on some sort of device, tablets, PCs, mobile devices like phones. All are options for getting at that user interface, and depending on the type of user, you're going to see different types of functionality. So we're going to go into the software, but I thought I'd give you this big picture before we jumped right into the screens here. All right, I'm going to back this off, and we're going to enter into the actual browser here. So again, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to try to acclimate you as quick as possible. If you've never seen Traxxas before, this is sort of a landing page for the web user interface. I'm using a browser here. Across the top, I've got different areas of the application. We're going to be talking particularly about the packaging area in the demonstration today. So I'm going to dive into the packaging area, and I'm presented with an overview of 4 packaging lines and their current statuses, what they're producing, how efficient they are. Again, remember, this is an integrated solution with many different subjects beyond quality, and that's actually an advantage that we're bringing this quality type interaction and tying it in with these other things. So I'm going to actually dive down into packaging line 1, and we're going to land on this screen. Okay, let me tell you about what we're looking at here. What this screen is going to represent is a very important piece of user interface on the plant floor. This is a main operator screen that is going to probably sit at or next to each production area or line. So this is a line 1 packaging line operator screen. This is like the hub for operators to work off of. They're going to be doing a lot of activities to and from this screen, and so we're going to use this as the center point as I show you different aspects of the quality functionality. Now, it's pretty dormant right now. We're not running a production order. One of the first things I'm going to show you is about checklists and tasks that can be configured in Traxxas to help guide operators through things that they should be looking for. Like Corey mentioned, to sort of augment post-production inspection, we want to be looking for things even before production begins that might affect quality of the product as it's being produced. So in this example, as we start a changeover activity on the line, I'm going to activate that by clicking the start button. We're going to see a task pop up in this right-hand pane, which is a changeover checklist. This is a task that has been pre-configured to walk operators through a standard operating procedure and specific things that they need to check. So an example, a scheduled task, a scheduled checklist being triggered by a particular event. I'm going to just click into this real quick, give you a tour of what these task forms kind of look like and work like. You can see I've got a cleaning checklist at the top, a changeover checklist once I've done some preliminary cleaning, and there are various checkboxes. I've got the opportunity to allow users to enter data in. In this case, they have to verify that the labeler is being configured with the correct lot code for what they're actually producing. And there's logic behind this that can check against what's scheduled. Really, the idea here is that any number of checklist items and data entry fields can be configured and presented to the operator. You see some simple work instructions over here on the right. Pass-fail options for marking the task as complete in different ways, and user signature and notes. So as the first thing that we're hitting on here is the reduction of these paper forms that we see in almost every process. We can take all of these types of checklists and paper forms and bring these into the configuration of the software and present those to the operators at the right time. All right, so let's move past this checklist for changeover and start a production order. Now, this is part of what the operators are going to be doing through Traxxas as part of other types of operations data collection. They're going to be indicating that we're starting a production order on the line, telling Traxxas to start capturing data in a particular way. And this screen's going to leap to life here, all right? So now that we're actually running production, we see things like stoppage events and KPIs. These are really important things to have in front of the operator at all times. But integrated into that same experience over on the right, you now see that task list expanded out a bit more. There are some other tasks and checklists that have been pre-configured to be put out to the operator as they've started production, staging materials, preparing forms, and a post-production quality control check. Okay, these all have due dates. They all have different types of inputs that are being asked by the operators, and again, instructions can be added to these. So these scheduled tasks are really one of the important components of how Traxxas can solve that quality management sort of dilemma from the software standpoint. Now I'm going to go down to the next few tasks in this list. Again, these are also tasks of the same nature, but these are a little different. These are regularly scheduled tasks. We have something called an hourly HACCP check. This is a check not to necessarily inspect the product, but to periodically in a regular schedule throughout production, check various aspects of how the machinery is set up and how things are aligned possibly. So we are doing these spot checks to ensure not only product is being produced right, but also that the machinery is being set up. Again, like Corey was mentioning in an earlier slide, to try to move that prevention earlier on in the process before the product's actually made. So again, this is another example of a task form, but slightly different, being triggered hourly instead of on a particular event like changeover or start of production. All right, so tasks, an important piece of the puzzle. I'm going to move to another subject here, and below the tasks is another pane where we're seeing recent journal entries. One of the features of Traxxas is to provide a very flexible journaling tool for operations. We see operations using this all the time for things like end of shift notes, passing information from one shift to the next, noting just odd observations that may need to be acted on by a supervisor. Again, we see paper logs all the time in place for this. We're moving this into the system, both making it electronic, which is great, and putting it in front of the operator in the relevant locations and supervisors in the relevant locations in a user interface that they're already using. So we see the last 6 journal entries, provided the operators can click into those and take a look at those. We can jump out to a journal overview where we can get a little bit more interactive. I'm going to bring the date range back and display a few more entries here. And so operators can not only look at the most recent journal entries, but peruse back through a history, edit, add to, comment on these entries. And we find this is a great tool from a quality standpoint to take these observations and put them in the right place rather than just writing them down on a paper and filing them. Okay, so these things, we're going to see these come back up a little later in a supervisor view as well. All right, moving from journaling, we're going to go back up to the task list to take a look at a really specific type of inspection called an SBC inspection. So hourly, another element of the quality program is going to be to pull product from the line hourly, every half hour, every 2 hours, depends on your process, and inspect a random sampling. Okay, this is a widely used technique to not have to inspect every product, but to draw conclusions from random samples. And so just like these other tasks, we've got an hourly fill weight task that's been put into the list. This is one of our standard features. This is a standard entry form for SPC. In this configuration, we're asking for an operator to go grab 2 bottles off this packaging line of material, weigh them, and record the samples. So I'm gonna do a little recording of a sample. I'm gonna record a very low sample. Our typical range here for this configuration, I think, is something like anywhere from 20 to 70. So we're gonna record some low values to see what happens. You can also put some notes, and we have various different ways of getting user credentials. We have a very simple example here where we're just having user initials or a name typed in. As we get into more regulated industries, we have audit capabilities that can make this much more strict, requiring a user login and password combination, a PIN, badge scanning, so that we can verify the identity of the person that's making these entries. Again, that's going to vary depending on your implementation of how specific you need to track users. So I'm going to make this sample, and so I've completed that task. We'll note over here that task is now dropped off the list. So my hourly fill weight check is gone. I'm just looking at the most important tasks for the operator to be dealing with here in this environment. All right. But as an operator, sometimes we have operators that are trained to observe the SPC trends, to bring this into more real time. Traditional SPC is record it and someone else will look at it later. That's great for longer term types of changes, but if you're sensing production drifting in the middle of production, not looking at that data until later is not doing you any good. So we've got a little SPC hub that we've made available for operators over here, where we can focus in on specifically the SPC data. This is an SPC sort of overview of that real-time fill weight check. I've got the last 30 samples being displayed here. I've got some standard SPC process capability equations being calculated. So someone with a little SPC training can understand these values and understand where in the process to be looking to make adjustments. Over here, I mentioned the last 30 points. This is an XBAR-R SPC chart. These are standard SPC charts. There's many other varieties of SPC charts that Traxxas has the capability of displaying. This is a very, very standard configuration here. And you can see where points drift outside of the control limits and specification limits. They're being highlighted by red here. So an SPC real-time dashboard for operators to use on the plant floor. A historical interface here where we can take that same SPC data and get a little bit more interactive by picking date ranges and filtering by shift and product and job. So these are all things that we can put out in front of the operator and allow them to make quicker decisions and react faster as process variables drift. All right. Another topic that is related to a quality management system, maybe a little bit more on the fringe, but we feel pretty important, and that is preventative maintenance. I'm going to bring up this preventative maintenance sort of overview here. There's a lot of information going on this screen. Just kind of soak it in while I talk here. Don't worry, we're not going to break every piece down. What we're essentially doing in this preventative maintenance dashboard is we're taking a look at 3 of the key pieces of equipment on this packaging line: the filler, the labeler, and the caser. And we're saying these are key points on the line, and when these machines degrade in performance, when parts that need to be replaced maybe start nearing the end of their life, or they require sort of a regular maintenance, we see that the quality of what's being produced is affected. We get more rejects. There are more problems with that. So what we're doing from a preventative maintenance standpoint is we're pre-configuring some set points and limits so that we can automatically trigger preventative maintenance activities and send messaging out to users, to sort of maintenance users, to take care of those activities. You can see that the labeler has exceeded its limit, the filler's approaching the preventative maintenance activity limit, and the caser we're doing fine on. Over on the right is a list again of tasks, maintenance-specific tasks in this case, and I'm going to click into one of these to show off one more type of feature. This is a caser PM task where users can complete that, put notes in. We also link into an external system in some cases and bring in standard operating procedures, not in terms of text, but perhaps in terms of documents that are stored securely outside of Traxxas. So I'm going to click that. We've got an example here of a preventative maintenance SOP that walks the user through with imagery and more descriptive notes. So we've got that nice capability as well. And this same type of thing can be done on any of these quality tasks, not just maintenance. All right, so we're going to back out. Preventative maintenance, an important piece. Again, see how that fits into the whole puzzle here. It's all available through the same user interface, through the same application in a very natural way. The next bit I want to talk about, which really layers over all of these things that I've been talking about, is the notification and feedback system built into Traxxas. With all of these different topics I've been covering, you have the ability to configure alerts, essentially email alerts that can be sent out based on any criteria. Things like missed checks or failed checks, or when we want to escalate if a check is overdue from being done, we want to escalate that to the next level of supervisors. With exceptions when maybe an SPC sample is recorded out of specification. All of these types of activities are really being done already in a plant. They're just not an easy way to make them, to bring them into a software. And we're going to bring that all together. I'm going to show you an example of that with the fill weight check that I entered in before. If you recall, when I did the SPC sample before, I entered a very low value, something that fell below the lower specification limit. And there is a pre-configured alert that's set up in Traxxas already to broadcast out an email when that occurs. It's going to probably go to a list of supervisors, and then they're going to take some action based on that. So I'm going to actually bring up a mail client here, and that email should have already gone out here. And I'm going to take a look at an example of one of these emails. So I think it's this most recent one here, yep, 11/21. And this is the output of that notification system. So again, it got triggered when I entered in a low value, and it is sent out to a pre-configured list, and the content that goes in this is also very configurable. So these aren't stock messages that go out. You can see here we've injected some data actually into this message. So I've not only alerted people that there's an out of specification, but I've given them some data on the last 10 points that have been recorded up to this point, so they can maybe see a little bit of information about how it's trending. We can embed links in here that can take you back into Traxxas. There are all sorts of fantastic things that can be done. And remember, people are now walking around with essentially an email client in their pocket all the time now. So there's a very effective way of reaching people and sort of spreading information out throughout the organization. So notification and feedback, again, a layer on top of all these subjects, very important in terms of putting together a complete quality solution. All right, so we've danced around and we've touched on a lot of the data collection, the things that the users are doing on the plant floor. And this all looks great, I'm sure. Some of you may be wondering sort of what's behind the scenes. What's driving this? Is this sort of all just like fixed? How configurable is it? So I'm going to spend just a short amount of time showing you a little bit about what's going on behind Traxxas, and that is going to be done by going to this configuration section. Now, obviously, plant floor users are not going to have access to the configuration section in their user interface. This is all role and permission driven, but I'm logged in as an administrator, so I'm going to be able to see the configuration. And I'm just going to touch real briefly by going into the line 1 system configuration. Traxxas is a highly configurable piece of software. All of the behaviors, the set points, the conditions, the rules of what I just walked through and shown you are essentially being driven by this configuration. We've got an equipment model. We've got a model for defining the different tasks that need to be conducted and how often those need to be triggered. We've got places where you define the inputs for these task definitions, the forms that are going to be presented, the checkboxes and the numeric entries and note fields, and all the validation limits for those. We've also got a configuration area here for sample definitions for SPC, so you can see that fill weight check. Also got a bottle inspection check we didn't look at. When I dive into the fill weight check, I look at rule definitions, so that the things that are being checked when each sample definition is entered, each fill weight sample is made, those are also all configurable. So I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here, but I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle to understand that your problems are vast and varied and complex. And this software has the configurability to sort of bring all the things I showed you to the table, but also allow you the flexibility to create a system that works in your environments. All right. So just to kind of pique your curiosity and satisfy it a little bit, but to also let you know what's going on under the hood. The last thing I'm going to end on is going to come back to sort of the user story, and I'm going to come back to the packaging line again, and we're going to talk about what supervisor type user is going to have access to. So again, going back into line 1, there's probably going to be a production supervisor who's very interested in some aspects of quality. There may be dedicated quality management resources that are, sort of tasked to ensure all of these different quality things that we've been talking about are happening. And so we're going to come down here and click under reports on quality, and we're going to have a look at a quality summary dashboard. This is really tying everything that we just went through together and bringing information into a single place where we can alert a user to problems, put actionable things up on the screen that they need to be dealing with, and make it really easy so they don't have to hunt around and pull a series of 5, 6, 7 reports they may never do throughout the day anyway, and just to figure out what's going on. So let me tour you through some of the highlights of this dashboard. In the left column, we have several pieces of information relating to the straight yield type quality that's going on the line 1 production system. You can see the current production orders quality is at 91%. It's blue because it falls within these range set points that are preset in the configuration. So we're okay at 91%. We've lost 1,200 bottles so far in this order, and it's a pretty high-speed line, so only 6.3 minutes of time loss. But we're doing kind of a neat thing here. We can monetize that because we have this very accurate real-time information. And so we have estimates for how much it costs for material loss all along the line, or maybe just overall. We can monetize that and put that into some kind of perspective. We're also looking at the last 5 jobs of quality loss here, so historically beyond just the one we're currently working on, and you can again see some blue, green, red sort of indicators for when these qualities fall inside or outside of the set points. And down at the bottom, where are these quality yield loss rejects coming from? We've got sensors along the line in this case, at the caser, the labeler, the metal detector, and at the weigher, and we're seeing the distribution. We're seeing that the caser by far gives us the most problems. So going back to the preventative maintenance example, that might be an area where we're focusing on making sure that that machine's in tip-top shape and not having any issues. We talked about the log entries on the plant floor, users adding things at the end of shift or as they observe them. There are a lot of different categories of logging going on, but we can extract quality-specific type log entries and present them here in the quality summary for that quality supervisor. And so you can see a list of previous or recent entries from the quality log, bringing those all together so that, again, this user doesn't have to bounce around to a lot of different screens to pull this information together. In the third pane here, we've got a summary of the SPC information. So those regular checks we're doing hourly on the line being brought in, and we can sort of observe that trend and where we're trending in terms of control limits and specification limits. And then when we do have measurements that fall outside of those specification limits, we can highlight those down here below and take a look at those specific measurements. Finally, on the right, a summary of the tasks that are scheduled. We've got 2 different groupings here. We want to make sure that the quality supervisor is informed of tasks that have failed. So we have HACCP check tasks where the operator is actually making a determination at the end whether they didn't just do the check, but whether it passed or failed. So when these checks fail, they're popping into the supervisor dashboard, and we've got linking where the supervisor can drill in and get more information about what exactly happened in that task to follow up. And we've also calling out in an orange color overdue tasks. So anything throughout the process that has to do with quality that's being asked of the user base, but they aren't getting to it. And sometimes there's good reasons for that, but bringing that to the attention of the supervisor and calling out when there's tasks overdue. Again, linking being added in here to potentially escalate that. What can happen under this link? We can send another round of emails out. We can maybe cause something to alert or light up on the operator screen to sort of call their attention even more so. So again, in summary, bringing all of those different topics together from quality management, a very challenging thing for many software platforms, and we feel Traxxas is uniquely positioned to do that because we're already on the plant floor. We're already touching a lot of these systems. We're already putting screens in front of users in real time throughout the day as they conduct their duties. It's the perfect place to integrate some or all of these different quality subjects into the process. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to turn this back over to Greg. We'll get the PowerPoint back up for you, and we'll finish this off.
Thanks, Bill. I really enjoy listening to you walk through Traxxas. I really appreciate how you showed user stories, a manager and a line operator, and the things they can do. Obviously, as you indicated before you began, Traxxas really can do a whole lot. And while today we touched on some of what it can do with quality, in fact, not even everything perhaps it can do with quality, it does do lots of different things for lots of different customers. As you can see here on the screen, we have solutions that touch on virtually all of the manufacturing management challenges that factories face. We are at the end of our substantive presentation and are now happy to take a few questions. Corey and Bill have the ability to provide answers here on our call, and of course we're happy to follow up with those questions we don't have a chance to get to here today.
Yeah, so the first question is from Nicole. The question is, can Traxxas integrate into measurement devices like scale to automatically log measurements so an operator doesn't need to manually enter it? Bill showed an instance of SPC where the operator was keying that data into a form. Bill, maybe you can expand on that a little bit with this question.
Sure, absolutely. So the answer is yes, for sure. We are out on the plant floor with a user interface, as you've seen. It's a very common request that we're doing frequent measurements, and we just want to sort of avoid that error that could potentially be introduced by sort of the hand transcribing values over. So in those cases, we have many examples we can share with you where we integrate scales via USB, via serial port in through the PC terminal that's there, and we're essentially allowing data to be pushed in. I'm not going to get into the details and the technical details of how that's accomplished, but it's certainly possible that you bring a form up and you have operators putting things on scales or measuring devices and activating, through some switches and pushing that information straight into the form. So absolutely.
All right, thank you. The second question is from Mike. The question is, do you have clients that are specifically using this for injection molding? Are there areas of software that are specific for this type of manufacturing? So the answer is yes. We work with several folks that do injection molding as a piece of their process. And in terms of application of the software, there's several different applications we can probably discuss offline. I'll mention a few. In injection molding, the cycling of the machinery, we connect into data historians and things of that sort so we can continuously log pressures, temperatures, key attributes of the injection molding process. We can also represent that in SPC. And as Bill mentioned, when we have SPC, out of compliant measurements, we can then create alerts and notifications to follow up on those things as well. In injection molding, OEE is certainly an application. So there's various applications of Traxxas that can be applied to that process, and we're happy to have a follow-up discussion to go into deeper detail with those if you'd like, Mike.
Might be a good time to mention something that I know comes up in a lot of customer conversations, which is something you've both touched on, and that is the notion of, this is such a comprehensive piece of software, and of course we'd like to take advantage of all of its features and functions, but it can feel a little overwhelming. Can we implement this in a manner that perhaps is more measured? And the answer is yes, of course. You can get started small. You can get started with one process or one aspect of your operation and grow it. So that's something to keep in mind, is that you can be as ambitious as you like, but we typically counsel customers to measure twice, cut once, we like to say, and start with a clear plan and perhaps phased plan, and grow it over time.
We have a third question. It is, does this work on mobile devices like tablets, phones, etc.?
Yeah, I'll take that, Corey. So absolutely, I mentioned that here in this architecture, but let me expand on it. The screens that we just went through in the Traxxas web interface, these are all being built with really state-of-the-art technology. So these are all what are called responsive screens. So as we render the same screen on different size devices all the way down to a phone, we're going to have the ability to move user interface elements around. There you go. There's a good slide, Greg. And you can see these are all pictures in some cases of the same screen, just resized. So for sure, not only different device sizes, but we're fully compatible with Android, iOS, any of the operating systems you're gonna have running on any of these tablets and phones. So a resounding yes on that one.
This has become really a really popular need. Some of the projects most recently, people going paper-based with forms, and their operators need to be mobile while they do inspections around the facility. So the ability to supply tasking and forms on a mobile device is really important, as well as when you're managing the operation and there's issues out on the floor. If you practice line walks, Gemba walks, it's nice to have that data available in your hand as you're walking through the facility. As a plant manager, I wish I had something like this back in those days where I didn't have to walk the facility, throughout to understand which lines were having my biggest problems. Nowadays, you can pop up on the phone or the tablet and understand which lines are the big issues and jump straight to those and save a lot of time and focus your efforts. So a lot of good applications for mobile. We have another question from Dan Burkett. The question is, can the system be made 21 CFR Part 11 compliant, and what does the audit trail look like?
Great. I'll take that. So this is can be a fairly long answer and discussion, so I'll do my best to make it very short. We definitely have a capability, didn't get too deep into it here in this presentation, called auditing, that can be turned on for specifically these types of environments. And essentially what the auditing feature in Traxxas does is it provides a little bit more rigid signature prompts for data editing, data entry, as well as configuration changes. These are all things that when you have a software system implemented in a regulated industry like pharmaceutical, that is very important. And so we have full support for all of that. Essentially, you have an audit trail of every single change made to every single either configuration or data record that you want stored in the software, down to the gory detail: who made it, when they made it, what was changed, what was changed from, what was changed to. The audit functionality allows you to sort of tweak that configuration and sort of turn it up to full blast or turn it down a little bit and make it a little bit more selective around where that's enforced. But you have all of those options. This feature is there specifically for this 21 CFR Part 11 compliance, which many of our regulated customers face. So yes, absolutely.
I think that concludes the questions on the line.
Good. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Bill. We are going to wrap up today's presentation, and you can see on the screen right here, if you have additional questions or would like more information, please reach out to us on our website and at the phone number and email you see here. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating in today's quality management webinar. Bye-bye.